Your source for all things Texas Tech. This is the Ask Level podcast from Double T 97.3.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome into another episode of the Ask Level podcast, brought to you as always by our friends at Cantex Roofing and Construction.
I'm Mike Hebert, owner of Cantex Roofing and Construction. Every day is game day, and we'll get it right when it comes to your roofing, construction, windows, and mirrors. Call Cantex Roofing and Construction today. Together, we are one serving you.
He's Chris Level. I'm Chois Woodman. Level, how we doing, man? You got the post-basketball blues yet, or you okay?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we're into the it's portal season now, right?
It is. It is.
What I think as the young people say, what is that? SZN season?
Season,
Yeah, portal season. Yeah, I mean, we're down to 4 teams left. Yeah, the off season is just hits you hard with an assistant coach leaving for another job, and you've got players entering the portal, and just away we go. There's no rest for the weary. So yeah, I guess we've advanced to the next stage.
There's always a new stage. It doesn't ever stop. But this one can be really fun when you're talking about portal season, or it can be really, frustrating or whatever. But the newest news, I guess, that came out this past week was that Pop Isaacs and Robert Jennings both go in the transfer portal. What's your initial reaction to that?
Yeah, I would tell you too. I bet the announcements there's some announcements still to come. I think you'll get some
Sure.
announcements about players returning. Which that's also it's like being in recruiting, covering recruiting as long as I have.
Yeah.
It's wild that when a player is just gonna come back to a team, there's an announcement now. But that's
Crazy.
the way of the world. I know it's like there's an announcement for everything. Yeah, and you mentioned we were talking about the everything that's gone on in I guess the last week. You can't mess with there's nothing you could do about coaching changes and staff movement and all those things. That's just a part of when seasons end and people make hirings and firings and but I hope that they will look at adjusting the calendar a bit to where they push the portal window, I don't delay it a week or two, just so you
I agree.
don't, yeah, just so teams that are in the tournament aren't sitting there, I don't know. It's just that's kind of an awkward existence. And it's similar that way in football too. But anyway, I think they're trying to look at that as well, just on the calendar. But yeah,
Yeah, wasn't it Rick Barnes? I think it was Rick Barnes that was talking about, hey, we're sitting there trying to get ready for a game to go to the Final Four, and I'm having to devote two of my coaching staff, two guys in
I
my
think it
coaching
was
staff.
I think it was Brad Underwood.
Oh, yeah, thank you. That's
Yeah.
exactly who it was. It was Underwood.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's saying he's got to devote two members of his coaching staff exclusively to handling portal stuff at the moment and paying attention and fielding calls and all that. And as crazy as, that's crazy, right? You should be fully focused on trying to get your team to the Final Four. But if you're not in the portal game, then you're lagging behind too.
Yeah, and this is why a lot of staffs now have like like what Kellen Buffington is for Grant as a general manager, or a James Blanchard that can multitask and deal with some of the things that aren't necessarily game prep and on the field prep and all those things. It's roster management and all those kinds of things. So anyway, but yeah, I have lots of mixed emotions. I'm not, I guess, in some ways, not surprised about some of the entries you've had. But look, and the portal has been great to Texas Tech. I mean, you look at what you added this past year. You look at the Moonies and the Tariqs and the Marcus Santos Silvas and the
Bryson Williams.
Davion Ward, Bryson Williams. You look at the crew that you had a year ago, and you just, it's been really good to you. But I'm still just not used to it. In that when you have one of your guys, and I just think that like Pop and a Jennings, you had them for 2 years and they were organic and they were your recruits out of high school, and
Mm-hmm.
I thought you'd seen them both improve at different levels, and one of them was a 34 game starter, the other one was a 10 game starter, and in different ways they absolutely helped you get to the NCAA tournament. And obviously Pop was a huge factor in that, and he won't have any shortage of suitors. But I certainly understand if there's a difference of opinion in the way that Grant views him, maybe versus the way Pop wants to be used, or
Mm-hmm.
however you want to look at that from just a purely basketball standpoint. This is kind of, and I think Robert, my guess was still going to be mostly a role player. And you can't fault somebody if they want to go seek a starting job or make more playing
Right.
time elsewhere. That's the why this is set up the way it is.
Yeah.
And Texas Tech will not sit idly by. They will try to, I'm sure get bigger and deeper and better. And
Sure.
but it's just the whole thing is just still somewhat foreign. Just watching so much movement. But again, it works both ways, and you've benefited. And I'm not saying that you got kicked in the gut here. I think that there's probably a lot of mutual decisions here, and Texas Tech will be just fine. I firmly believe that. With what now that they've had a full year to go about it, but and have a staff in place and all those kinds of things. But yeah, man, it's just like I said, I have mixed emotions about it.
So just a quick update on the counter. Six, do I have the number correct? You've got 6 spots open on your roster. And if Demarion Williams, who I haven't seen his name officially in the portal,
Well,
that's
yeah,
7.
I mean, so you're counting. Okay, so Warren and Joe is 2, Kyron
Yes.
Lindsay is 3,
True Steffi.
Jennings, Steffi is 4, and then Jennings and Pop would be 5 and 6.
So,
And like I would say too that if like Lamar were to get in the portal for the same reasons that
yeah.
Jennings and Pop did, are like, okay, I didn't get to play a lot.
Yeah.
I'd like to either get back out west or play more or whatever the reasoning would be. I could absolutely see that as a possibility. Kerwin Walton is also another, I could see where he would, but I think you're at 6 right now with a chance to, have more than that.
Sure. Yeah.
So, and I don't know, I'm not I don't know if Demarion, I don't expect him back here. I don't know if he's got eligibility left.
Okay.
I think that's I put that as like a TBD. I'm not real sure. He may know, other people may know. I just don't know if I'm prepared to talk in absolutes there, if he's got another year.
It is hard to keep up with. I am ready
Yeah.
to get past the COVID
Yeah.
realm where we don't have those extra years because it's hard to count. But yeah,
Yes.
so that should most likely Demarion would be a 7th spot, though, right? I mean, I think that's a
Well,
fair assumption.
if yeah, I mean, although yeah, I mean, I guess that's right. I mean, bottom line is, yeah, you have 13. It's probably easier to look at your 13 spots and say
Who's here? And
who's
yeah,
coming back.
yeah,
I mean, kind of deal. And I would say that Darion and Chance are the two that I feel pretty, and Cambridge. But
yes,
again, after the game was over against NC State, I think some of these guys that are now entering the portal kind of had said, "Hey, I plan on coming back," and maybe at the time that was the plan.
sure,
And plans change.
they can.
Conversations take place, and you have exit meetings, or you just kind of talk it through and say, "What's best for us? What's best for you? Is there common ground there?" and so, but yeah, here we sit. So, yeah, you're going to have a handful of new members to this roster, though, for sure.
All right, I got quite a few questions from two people in particular on Twitter. This from Leah and Kelly. So I'm going to hit you with these kind of back to back as we go along. But Kelly asked, does it surprise you that Pop transferred and did his off the court issues this season lead to him transferring at all?
Maybe we'll get to a point where we shouldn't be surprised just because there's nothing that's certain in this day and
Right.
age, which I think in some ways frustrates people, but this is the way it works. I mean, and those of us that are like trying to follow it and cover it and talk about it, and that know some of the parties involved, it's still a bit foreign. But again, you've benefited as much as it's hurt you. But I don't think any of his off court situation factors in here. I think this is strictly like a basketball move. That's my take on it. And
Yeah.
um, and was the question, did it surprise me? I guess
Yeah,
I
and
answered both. Yeah.
you covered them both there.
Yeah.
So, and Leah asked any indication of where Pop may transfer to, and asked does dad's health have anything to do with the transferring?
No, I don't think it does. I think that I think he won't have any shortage of suitors. I think he's kind of a, I don't want to say like a guarantee, but he's a double digit scorer out there in a Power Five league, and was durable, and he played through a bit of an injury, I think.
Yep.
And I'll say this. This kind of gives you an idea of my feelings of it. I understand why he left. I can understand Grant's side and Pop's side. If they couldn't like agree on role, we could just agree to disagree. I don't think there was a lot of animosity here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, from what I've been able to gather. But I also hope, again, maybe I'm just being selfish here. I also hope that he's not somewhere else in the Big 12.
Agreed. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think that's a
yeah,
fair hope for any fan.
yeah, and I think that's a compliment as much as it is anything else.
Yeah, I don't ever want
Yeah,
to face these guys. I want to
yeah.
be able to root for them,
hmm
pull
And
for
I
them
will, I
afterwards.
will root for Pop and Robert.
Yeah, but it's a lot
They're,
harder to do if they're wearing
oh no,
a
yeah,
Cougar logo on their
or
chest
Kansas, or
or
yeah, like
Jayhawk. Yeah,
and like I rooted for Malik big time, and
yeah,
he didn't want to leave here.
yeah,
And he's a tremendous young man. That's
yeah.
just the Houston example that you gave right there with Malik Wilson.
True,
But
true.
yeah, so that's what I would say. I mean, I've heard of a school in the Pacific Northwest and the Big Ten that may be a landing spot for him, but I think that he could go wherever.
Hmm.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. He'll end up in a Power Five league, in my opinion, or one of those top mid-major schools. But it'll come down to a fit and role, and maybe location, and all those things based on his dad. So in some ways, now that they're in the portal, maybe you want to be ease of use in getting to Vegas. But I can't. That's their decision to make. I really can't pretend to know.
Yeah. Another one from Kelly. Now that Jennings is transferring, is it safe to assume EY stays?
Yeah, I think, yeah, because you've lost your two primary big guys on this team. I do think EY is going to stay. I think that he's liked it here. I think that he liked it. I think that the staff liked him. I think there's a lot of upside there.
Hmm.
I think he showed you some ability. I think he showed you the ability to shoot the ball. And I think that's a piece they'd like to grow old with a bit. And uh, so, but will you, because if you do get him to come back, do you, I mean, I think you're going to try to go at multiple big guys. Let's put it that way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure
Yeah.
there's a guy that grew more from game one to the end of the season than EY too. I mean, as far as his game. Last one from Kelly is Darian D5 the centerpiece to this team next year?
I don't think anybody knows that because it depends on what you bring in here.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he will be a vital part of what you're doing, but centerpiece is a strong term in that, you're building everything around him. I don't envision that per se. I don't know if Grant would or Darion would want that.
Yeah.
I think you want to put a good team together, and then you can kind of see what that looks like, and then kind of emerge from that, and see kind of what we've got, what we're able to add, and then go from there, without like getting into some sort of commentary about let's build it all around him kind of deal. I don't think that's Darion's I don't think that's his game anyways, per se.
Yeah. Another basketball question before we kind of shift gears here. This one is from Travis, and it says, any idea level who they will go after to replace Dave Smart?
No, and I think that's still very in its infancy. Because I mean, when I was first, when you start processing this, I mean, like you could go get a guy like Mike Boynton. You could go get a guy
Are you okay
that
with that?
that's been in this league. It's been a head coach that would add some age and experience and recruiting to this deal. You could add somebody that a lot of us are not familiar with. That's just a really good coach. It
Yeah.
all depends on kind of how Grant envisions divvying up the roles and what he feels like he needs.
Yeah.
Do you need a strong X's and O's guy? Do you need a strong recruiter? Do you want an offensive minded X's and O's guy or a defensive? I mean, I know how it was largely set up this past year, but that doesn't mean it stays that way. Coach Smart was largely in charge of scouting every opponent, and not solely, but more big picture scouting. And so, because you had some guys that were scouting, they're looking at every other and they're digging deep on personnel. He was more of schematic, I think.
Yeah.
And he handled substitutions during the game. I mean, there's a variety of things that each one of them is responsible for. But Grant could easily say, let's adjust this, based on who we can bring in here, and let's kind of switch some of those duties up and stuff. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's too early to tell, but I mean, you've got a lot of options, and I think this will be an attractive spot for somebody for sure.
Yeah. Definitely agree with that. This one from Mark on Twitter as we shift. Well, I guess before we move away, but from basketball and talk a little football, about the Final Four that you got set. The NC State Wolfpack. I don't feel so bad about the loss. I walked away from that Thursday night level feeling pretty down, being like, man, that one stung. That one stung. Really wanted to beat them. Hate that you lose an upset, but doesn't look like such an upset anymore after NC State basically takes the same blueprint that they had against you and applies it over and
Everybody
over.
else.
Yep,
Yeah.
it's
I
worked
mean,
against everybody.
what they just pulled off is like the Texas Tech equivalent of this is you beating like either Texas or Texas A&M in the Big 12 tournament to win the
Yeah,
Big 12 tournament championship, and then seeing the same team again for the right to go to the Final Four
crazy.
and beating them again.
Yeah,
That's what the NC State fan has just gone through, and they've won 9 in a row. I think everybody's going to expect UConn and Purdue to meet up on this Monday night. I just would be careful about betting against NC State. They are on quite the run. It's actually one of the coolest. I mean, I know it took me a few days to kind of view it this way, just because I watched a lot of these antics up close, and I just watched their confidence, and just it was just frustrating to lose. Losing sucks. But as they continue to win, you just step back again and go, "This is incredible.
it is.
This is absolutely incredible."
Unfortunately.
Coach on a hot seat. This kind of weird mix of players
Hmm.
and style, and that they're playing really through the post
Yep.
with some guards that make shots on occasion, and yet they're just beating everybody. I mean, it's just really wild to me. And they've made it to the Final Four, to the near the top of the mountain, and I mean, at this point, regardless of what they do in Phoenix,
Oh,
this
yeah.
is like a documentary needing to happen kind of thing. And I'm sure nobody was like 17-14 Tuesday night in Washington D.C. on the
Yeah.
very first games of the ACC tournament. Like, let's get a camera crew around these guys because they're about to go on quite the journey. No, that probably didn't exist.
Probably not. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's wild. I mean, like this doesn't happen.
No.
It doesn't. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And this is the beauty of the NCAA tournament. And this is why anybody that says something about conference tournaments don't matter or, whatever. I mean, BS, man.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a in your face example of using that as a tool. And you've reached close to the top of the mountain, man. You can certainly see the flag planted at the top. You're just not quite there yet.
It's wild.
It is
Absolutely
wild.
wild.
With a couple of DJs and this cartoon character that's just got America in the palm of his hand. I mean, it's unbelievable. And it's something else that needs to be noted too. So yeah, I don't feel as bad from a Texas Tech standpoint. I think you caught a hot team. They have remained hot. They've won 9 in a row. It's worth mentioning though when we start talking about post players.
Yeah.
I think there was a time when the post player was kind of like didn't really exist or afterthought or however you want to phrase that. But look at the 3 of the 4 teams in the Final Four.
No doubt. Yep.
Zach Edey, got the Klingon kid for UConn. You got Burns for NC State, and they all are arguably their team's most important, vital players right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think really you could actually say without a doubt they're all 3 of those teams' most important players right now.
Agreed.
And they, and in the games to get to the Final Four, especially so. And so I think that's worth mentioning that post play is back, bigs are back. And so, I think that's worth pointing out.
Heck, the giant kid for Alabama, his name's escaping me right now. He's been pretty important to their team too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so that is a good point, Level. So quick Final Four pick or championship pick.
I'm going to go against my own advice. I think UConn's the best team. I think they have they're at a different level. I don't know if I trust like the guard play for Purdue so much. I don't know if I don't trust Alabama's live or die by the 3. I mean, it's the analytics thing.
Yeah.
And it's working. They try to get as many efficient 3s up in a game as they can, and if not, they're at the rim.
Yep.
I just think their luck will run out there a bit, and I know that I've just said not to bet against NC State, but I think Purdue will be a tough matchup because the Purdue NC State game is the one I'm I guess most fascinated by because I think UConn may roll double digits over Bama. The Purdue NC State game though, it's really going to be about whose group of bigs and specifically the 2 that we've been talking a lot about stay out of foul trouble.
Yeah.
How do you defend the other without fouling, and who gets those first couple of 3 fouls?
Sure. Yeah.
Because that to me is kind of how that game will go. And Edey does a really good job of not fouling, almost to the point where people get frustrated while he doesn't contest enough shots, doesn't block, not a ton of blocks. May alter some, but he just, but he does a really good job of not fouling. So maybe he needs to be more aggressive. I don't know, but that's why I would give a slight edge to Purdue.
Yeah, Edey got quite a few favorable offensive whistles too, as far as fouls go against Tennessee.
And it makes you wonder: does that remain as such? Yeah.
Yep.
So
Well, we'll see. Yeah, I'm with you. I think that's the far more fascinating matchup of the 2 in the first games of the Final Four. All right, flip it over to football. Mark asked the question, Level, after the first week of spring practice, who or what is standing out in your eye?
well, it's interesting. I had a conversation with somebody the other day about there's a lot of guys not participating, just because of rehab or injury or just, load management. Maybe that's a word we would use here with like a guy like Taj.
Sure.
I think some of your offensive linemen, like a Davion Carter and Sterling Porcher, I think have done well. I think your kicker, excuse me, your new punter, Jack Burgess, has also kind of done some things. I think Cam Dickey, who we've talked about here, has I think kind of done some things at running back. But it's so hard spring football. It's just one of those things where it's tricky. I think
Very.
Josh Kelly has done a really good job of surprising some. Not I don't want to say surprising folks, and some of these guys are supposed to. These are the senior transfers, and they're going to
Right.
basically be inserted into like primary roles. They're supposed to. But you've got a whole bunch of defensive guys that aren't, participating or having a miss here or there. Your Isaac Smiths, your Dylan Spencers that I would have been super excited about. You already know what Ben Roberts and Jacob Rodriguez can do. I
Mhm.
think Mo Horn has been a bright spot. So there's just some names.
Yeah, I think if those guys, those older guys, aren't like standing out, it's more of a concern for you in spring football for the offensive line, like you said, with Davion Carter and some of those guys, and Josh Kelly on the receiving core. Those are guys you expect to kind of look a little bit different than, but like you said, if spring football is the hardest thing to judge because if someone's having success, someone else on your team is not having success, typically speaking, whether it's the offensive side or the defensive side. Um, you got to really know what you're looking for to be able to judge it. So it's your team going against your team. So you never know who's actually having success or not. Um, Anything else out of spring football so far? Fairly healthy, right? Still got a ways to go, but anything else standing out in the spring? We've got one scrimmage down and two essentially to go.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's just not a lot to get into just yet. I mean,
Yeah,
I think that you've still got, 3 weeks left.
yeah,
Yes, you're not even really. I don't even know if you're at the halfway point yet.
sure. Yeah.
Because you have to go through the those days of acclimation where they can't even do the whole pad thing and all
Hmm.
that stuff. And so, yeah, to me, I hate to say it like this, but to me, this spring has been about like Barron. I think it's been about like your Cameron Brown, Jake Strong, Will Hammond
Hmm.
guys. But it's also, as much as it is some of that stuff and like the quarterback spot, it's also really about a lot of guys that aren't participating too. I think you have to remember that part
Yes.
too, just because of they had surgery at the tail end of last year, they're not quite cleared yet, or hey, we kind of know what this kid can do. He's kind of got a tender hamstring. Hey, man, sit out this week. I mean,
Be
it's all
safe.
those kinds of, yeah, things too. So you just have to take that into consideration. But um, yeah, I mean, how about Casey Long from Shallow moving over to defense?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting
Yeah.
deal, just because of some of the things that we had talked about, that you got a lot of guys that aren't going through it, and it's like we don't have enough rush guys. We need some rush, and I know you're kind of an offensive lineman right now, but you're a bit undersized. You played both ways in high school. Come on over here, man, and let's see what we got, and
Sure.
then stuff like that. So you're experimenting. This spring is about Clay McGuire and trying to figure out like what he feels like he's got.
Hmm.
Do those pieces need to stay where Stephen Hamby thought they needed to be? Does he have a different opinion? And now you're getting to work with them, and so you're cross training. So that's kind of what this time of year is for. It's fun, and it's low pressure, because there's not a game that you're preparing for. It's just about development and all those things.
One more question from Mark before we wrap up. He says, for baseball, this team is struggling against subpar teams and appears to be headed towards an early summer at home. Is this just a down year or are there deeper issues?
Well, I mean, it's not probably going like most hoped, including Coach Tadlock. I think that we knew there was some concerns about your depth of your arms.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of bearing out here.
Yeah.
Um, but I just, I'm not ready to write them off yet. I think you've still got a long way to go. But it probably hasn't been at the level that we were used to there for a bit. It's probably, I don't know, dipped a bit, but
Mm-hmm.
that level that we were I don't want to say used to it, but it was really high. Like as in top 10 in the country, as in foregone conclusion that you're going to host on that first week of the NCAAs and all those
Right.
things. And this, what I'm seeing right now is not that. And so, I don't know if you've just dipped as a program. I don't know if I'm ready to say that, but I'm also just not ready to hit Tim off yet. I just know what they can do when they get hot, and you look up and they win 8 or 10 in a row or something, and you're going to go, remember a couple weeks ago when we thought they were, that's just kind of how it works
That
sometimes
is,
too.
yeah, that is the sport of baseball. Seems like you hit a lull where every year, unless you're one of like 3 or 4 teams, every single team and fan base goes through a stretch where it's like, man, we're just not that good. And a lot of times it's been later in the season for Tech. And I guess that's what you hope this is at the moment. But it seems like, Level, honestly, we talk about complementary football a lot. I don't think this team's played very good complementary baseball, because the last couple of weeks, your pitching has looked a lot better than it did early, but the hitting's gone away. And it's just,
Well, in some of these games, your defense has cost you.
defense has absolutely been a problem.
You've had some base running miscues.
Yeah, it's just some of the simple
yeah.
stuff, some of the baseball plays you got to make.
Well, and that's what they say. It's always the thing about, and really football is no different, but baseball especially so. It's really about who gets out there and makes the fewest mistakes usually wins.
A lot of the time it is. So, yeah, we'll see. Definitely in a low spot for the season, but this week, depending when you're listening, you got 2 against Stanford and 3 against Houston at home, and maybe just a confidence booster if Tech can get some wins at home to try to fix that. But
so what I hear you saying is we'll be having a much different conversation a week from now about baseball.
I would hope so.
There you go.
That's the hope. We'll see.
Yeah,
that's
right.
it. Level. That's all we got as far as the questions go. Appreciate the time as usual. And
Woodman, hope your Easter was incredible. I hope you had good family time. I hope you snuck some eggs out of somebody else's Easter basket on your little egg hunt. There you go. That's right. Yeah. There's a dad penalty here.
That's right.
That's right. So, anyways, but no, appreciate everybody listening. Thank you to Cantex Roofing for being a part of this podcast that we do every week. And keep hope alive, everybody. Keep your head on that swivel as it relates to roster churn with basketball, really men's and women's. And we'll see kind of what it looks like when we reconvene next time.
That's right. Level. We'll talk to you next week.
Sounds
That's Chris
good.
Level. I'm Chois Woodman. You've been tuned into the Ask Level podcast, brought to you by Double T 97.3.
You've been listening to the Ask Level podcast, powered by Double T 97.3.